sometimes we don't want to go to the doctor, even when we know something is wrong, because we're scared to know what it is or just how bad it is. But this kind of logic can be counterproductive, especially when it comes to certain diseases. Early detection is what prevents exacerbated health issues and even death for so many diseases. Senator Sims, for example, a new study suggests that Black men are more likely to die from low-grade prostate cancer. The risk of dying from low-grade prostate cancer is double that of men of other races. What are some things Black men should know about prostate cancer and its early signs?
Absolutely. I appreciate this question. This is one of those areas I'm very passionate about, because I've had loved ones and family members close to me who have died from prostate cancer. So this is an area where I've tried to invest a considerable amount of effort and awareness in my community about the early symptoms and warning signs. But knowing, first and foremost, it's knowing the symptoms. Knowing if you're having trouble urinating, or if you're having decreased flow in your urine, blood in your urine is semen, or if you're having unexplained weight loss or bone pain. Knowing the symptoms, as we've talked about throughout this conversation, understanding what not waiting until the end when things have gotten so bad that the response has to be extreme, but preventing them and knowing the warning signs up front and not being afraid. For far too long, we have been afraid to be vulnerable. We have been afraid to be proactive about our health care. But when you have the ability to know and understand what those underlying symptoms are, it can help you. But we can't be afraid to be vulnerable. We can't be afraid to not be focused on our overall health. And understanding what those symptoms look like, that's what's going to help us in the long term.
Absolutely. Senator Harris, House Bill 5318, sponsored by our friends and colleagues, Senator Emil Jones III and Representative LaShawn Ford, was recently signed into law by Governor Pritzker. Senator, as the chair of the Senate Insurance Committee, why was this legislation necessary?
It was definitely necessary because it can save lives. And I think anytime legislation comes before us that can save lives, we must act. I mean, I looked at this legislation similar to what's already been in place for a few years when it comes to breast cancer screenings. This is just the male version when you talk about prostate and males and men's health. This is something that all men should do on an annual basis, just like women get their breast checks every year. I have mine scheduled for in October. I go annually to go get the prostate check because we know we've had too many friends, colleagues, family members experience prostate health issues. And we know that if you're able to detect it earlier than later, there's treatments, there are things that you can do to prevent it or to stop the spread or to even cure it to some degree to make sure that it doesn't enter the body and be detrimental to your health and ultimately cause death. So the legislation was so important because it gave an opportunity for men to have screenings through their insurance that is part of their annual insurance premiums that they pay with their annual insurance that they have. And so it's important, and we have to utilize this. And the word vulnerability always comes up. We have to remain vulnerable to not put that pride on the shelf and go and get checked out. A lot of it is stereotypes. When you come to and say, man, I ain't getting my prostate check. I ain't having nobody touch me and do this. But fellas, trust me, it can save your life and it will save your life if you go and get checked. We have to go get checked and stop looking at everything through one lens. We have to have a broad lens and think about our health, the longevity of life, and what we as Black men mean to the nucleus of our families. We want to be around so we can raise our families. Absolutely. And I think one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that we check all the boxes as far as our health. And House Bill 5318 was definitely a great measure and a step in the right direction to make sure that our prostates are able to get checked on an annual basis. And hopefully that preventative methods will lead to breakthroughs to catch things early on to get treated.
And again, thank you. That was really to underscore and echo what you've said. Wonderful piece of legislation, transformative piece of legislation. We just have to make sure, as been the undercurrent theme throughout this podcast, is that we educate the public that is there, right? That they can, that is now part of your insurance package. Senator Peters, what are general things everyone can do to support their loved ones who suffer from chronic illness? What are some things we can do?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a thing that I've had to do personally, and I think just in general, always check in with people. Like, first you ask people, how are you doing? And then they generally, as we've talked about, will be like, doing fine. Then you go, no, how are you really doing?
Right.
And get people to actually start talking to you about what they're going through. Then also ask people, what do you need? And then they're going to go, I'm fine. And you go, no, what do you really need? And keep pushing. And what you don't do more than you can, don't make promises you can't keep, but be there for them and try to help them and try to have people out there to help them. And then understand that you're there for them to communicate and talk to them about what they're going through and what they need on a regular basis. I think that's just the most vitally important part, because it's hard for people, as we've discussed, to open up about what they're going through. And if you can't convey what you need, then you're never going to tell anybody what you need, and nobody's going to know what you need until you really need it. And so I think, to me, it's about that level of communication and relationship. The other part about this is, especially if it's a loved one, I remember when my dad was at the end point. He was very sick. And so I'm about to admit something I'm not supposed to admit. So we called to have an ambulance come get him. And it was going to take him to Stroger, but his oncologist was at Northwestern. And I came back. I had actually just lost my job. So I get my debrief after I've lost my job. So I'm not necessarily in the best mood about my life while I'm doing this. And I told the EMT folks, no, he's an oncologist at Northwestern. I need you to take him there. I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to get him to Northwestern, where he was supposed to be at, because that's where his oncologist was. And that's all I really cared about. And so in my instance, it was basically also being like, I'm going to fight for this person who may not in this moment be in the position to be able to fight for themselves, because they have to put their energy into battling, say, cancer. And so when I think about this, it's not only about ensuring that people communicate to you, ensuring that you're asking them what they need and trying to push them to talk about that, but also knowing that there are times when you are there fighting for them, and that you have that expectation for people when you're in that position, that when you are at your most, difficult point, that because you've communicated to people about your needs, that they themselves know, this is what I'm going to do for you, right? This is what I'm going to do to fight for you, because we're in this together. So that's sort of my general viewpoint on that kind of stuff. It's just the value of communication, the value, as Napoleon pointed out, of vulnerability, and also the fact that we are in this fight together when it's someone that we love and we care about, and that we have to speak up and push people because we're trying to make sure that not only them, but the people who are supposed to help them are doing what they're supposed to do.